Yep.
Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Amédée, PhD student at IRD in SET. So I'm working with both ecologist, marine ecologist, and data scientist. And so our object of study are seabirds. So we consider seabirds as birds that obtain at least part of their food from the sea. And these animals are quite interesting to study in marine environment because they are at the top of the trophic chain. So in the oceanographic structure, we have processes that structure the primary production and that it reflects on the different step of the trophic chain. And at the top, we have seabirds. So they are animals that are wide-ranging with an adaptive foraging strategy, and what an interesting feature is that they give a response of the variability of ecosystems. They are often considered as indicator species because the study of such species is interesting for the study of the whole ecosystem. So seabirds goes from chick to adult, and when they are adult and they have to breed, they have to go back on land, to go back to a colony to take care of chicks. And during this specific period where they are breeding, they need to feed chicks and to protect them at the nest. So they have to perform foraging trips dedicated to food acquisition. And so it's a challenge for them because it need to be very efficient trips where they need to provide fish at sea and come back to the colony. So during this specific period where birds are breeding, they come back every day to the nest and we can capture them and fit the sensors on them. And so we have information on their foraging trips. So among the sensors that we can use, there are GPS, but also TDR for temperature depth recorder. And so it gives us information like this plot that I propose, where we have time series of depths. It's pressure, actually. I said this, but that's why high pressure correspond to dives. And we also have information of the trips, so we can see that where was the colony, the trip, the birds left the colony, dives in some place, and went back. So the idea is that from a GPS trajectory, there is some very heuristic information, and with DI, we can guess where we could have dives and the part where bird is traveling, is flying, where the bird is searching for food, and when it's resting on the surface or diving. So in marine ecology, usual tools are quite basic. The first method is first passage time. It's basically thresholds in the speed. So it assumes directly that when you have low speed, it's likely to be dives rather than traveling. Other methods are Markov model, where they use the sequentiality in steps and in direction of a trajectory to infer behavior modes. And so usual behavioral modes are the one I said before, so flying, searching, and diving. So the objective of this work was to assess performance of deep learning. There is some studies that try to use deep learning in marine ecology, but I will go in detail later. And in your case, it was dedicated to this prediction of dives using GPS track only. So as I said before, we have some trips that are that have where birds carry two sensors. We have both the trajectory and the depth. So we have dive observations. This dataset is a perfect dataset for training some neural network. So in this case, we have about 200 of trips from two species at the same colony in Peru. So it's cormorants, blue trajectories, and boobies in orange trajectories. For French people, it's cormoran et fou, name of the birds. So this is the basic architecture that was used previously by other ecologists in 2018. So the idea was just to use a fully connected network, having as input windows of the trajectories, temporal windows, where we have all the information given by the GPS. So longitude is latitude is basic information. They also had altitude, but the one I want to describe is coverage. The thing is that when you have GPS on a bird, there is some very interesting information about the gaps in the data, because as soon as the sensor is emerged, you can have delay in the acquisition of a position. So you can have very interesting information related to dives in the gaps of the data. So by coverage, we mean the ratio of fixes, GPS fixes that have been received divided by the expected number of fixes that we would have get with a strictly regular sampling of the GPS. So, and this is the architecture of the network that we proposed with Sophie Ronan. And so the idea was to do this. First idea was to use a new architecture, an existing architecture for segmentation tasks, so U-network with a convolution layer and describe the number of channel we choose. So it's a basic UNet. And the new thing we had was this, what we call distance matrix encoder. So the basic idea was that time series may be inefficient or difficult for the network to understand the underlying geospatial meaning of the trajectory. So the idea was to use a distance matrix and to convert this distance matrix that we can compute from 20 successive positions in a time series in different features that would be that to the U network. So actually, it's only a convolution with one kernel, so it's kind of a thread starting operation that allows to select different distance threshold, speed threshold, I'm sorry, in the distance matrix. So just to be clear, the distance matrix is only the distance between each pair of position of the trajectory that we are considering. So about the performance, these are ROC curves. So best model is the one that have more true positive associated to few false positive. So in this situation, we have for the two species, we train separately the same architecture on the two datasets. And in both cases, our method had better result than both classical methods. So first passage time, Markov model, and the fully convoluted network. One interesting difference is the fact that for cormorants, the results are a bit lower because we expect that the cormorants spend quite a lot of time resting at the surface. And it may be more difficult to understand dives and to discriminate these resting from trajectories from dives. And specifically, HMM first passage time are very bad at discriminating this. We also look at the temporal resolution. So it's very interesting to see that with the same data set resample at different temporal resolution, so 5, 15, and 30, we had decreasing performance gap between the methods. So there is huge differences between basic methods and deep learning with high resolution dataset, since the deep learning can capture the trajectories associated with dive. You have to know that dives in this species last about 2 seconds. So that's why when we have a sampling resolution above 5 seconds, it's more difficult for the trajectories to have a geometrical information of dives. And in this situation, we can see also that the fully connected network decrease very importantly. It's the blue. So the two networks are already in blue. And as soon as we go up to 5 seconds, it's very difficult for the fully connected network to have good performance. I thought about the coverage ratio. So, you know, this information of gaps in the data. Of course, using this information, we have better result with a deep network because it's directly I mean, gaps in data is directly related to dives. So it's no big surprise that the results are very good with this information. But we can see that HMM with this information does not manage to improve. So that's the first surprising result. And without this coverage ratio, so with only longitude and latitude, we can see that the only neural network that managed to be better than the HMM is the structure that we proposed, and that the fully connected network, actually, it cannot deal with only longitude and latitude data in this situation. And UNet is the UNet architecture without this distance matrix extractor that we had before. So we can see that this improvement is due to this little module, very simple, that we had at the beginning, to add feature describing the data as input of the UNet. Je sais pas trop. Ronan, en termes de temps, j'ai pas de chrono. Je sais pas trop comment ça se passe.
Ah, mais c'est bon. Vas-y. On n'est pas...
Parfait. So, yes. So this is another result we have, is that we try to demonstrate to ecologists that are not very used to use deep learning, that we can generalize such model when they have no overfit, and that we can use them on new data set. And so this is a new data set that we use with trips from the same species in Peru, still in Peru, but at a new colony with trips that are 2 times longer, but where we can guess that they are similar behavior in the trajectory that allow the network to have a great performance. And so on the map, you can see the true data. So it's GPS and observed dives. And with these dives, the objective of the marine ecologist is to have a map of dives distribution. So it can be a proxy of the prey of the seabird. So we can have information on where did the seabirds get their food. And this is very valuable information for ecologists. So they usually predict the dive's location when they don't have TDR data and only GPS data, and they perform kernel density estimation to have this estimation. So we compare these estimations of density with the different methods, and we compare that to the kernel density estimation applied to the true location. So it's very interesting to see that there is quite important differences between each method. And particularly in our case, we can see that for HGMM and first passage time, there is some overestimation of frequency of dives in the vicinity of the colony. Our guess is that birds used to rest at the surface and to bath in the sea close to the colony, and this typical behavior may be interpreted as dives by these methods that are very basic for dive prediction using only speed sequences. So this is interesting result, and this should, I hope that this should show to marine ecologists how we can gain from using deep learning methods. Another thing we did is that we try to generalize this network architecture to other species in another ecosystem very different in Brazil. So it's still species from the same genus. It's sulids, so boobies, et fous en français. So these tropical boobies are very similar in behavior, but they live in completely different ecosystem. In Peru, there is a polling with a lot of food available, while these birds in Brazil or in Fernando Noronha in the tropical Atlantic, close to the equator, and it's very oligotrophic ecosystem with few prey, and it's not the same prey. In Peru, you have anchovies. In Brazil, you have flying fish. So we can expect that if there is some similarities in the behavior, trajectory might be completely different. And I don't have in this presentation the result when we use directly the fit-train model on these trajectories. It was not very good. This was about the fully connected network, so about 60% of prediction. While with the fine-tuning, we managed to, in one case, to have better result than the HMM. It's very difficult data set. You can see that the performance are relatively low compared to other data set. It's difficult data because we have a pressure data that is very noisy, and so we are not even sure about the observation of the dives. But still, it's good information on the generalization of such approaches. So about deep learning in movement ecology, and in ecology in general. In the literature, we find most things about image analysis, and I think that these last 5 years, ecologists have been really interested into deep learning, but most of the time it's for tasks that are already well known in the deep learning academy, such as identification and classification of animals with application to recognize the plant, for example, or with camera traps. Some others have a problem, used the deep learning for population monitoring. You can see a picture of a seabird colony in Peru. It's a lot of birds, so it could be nice to have methods that could compute the number of birds automatically. But all of this approach, it's mainly about image analysis, and it's quite rare to see other approach with other type of data. There are some identification of bird songs with acoustic data and very few results with trajectory data. Whereas trajectory data are really used in movement ecology, and most of the time people use a hidden Markov model. So the objective of this work was first to try to provide this kind of trained networks for incitating the ecologists, movement ecologists to use deep learning for trajectory data as well. Indeed, one of the reasons we give to use deep learning is the fact that deep learning, the seabird trajectories result in a multi-scale processes. So what drive the seabird to go to perform the 3P perform is related to large-scale constraint like wind, memory, energy, and at a smaller scale you have other interaction, other processes that are involved. At the last scale, you have a movement related to predetection. So it's very the result of this multi-scale processes. And this is the aim of deep learning. So we can guess that deep learning would be a valuable tool to have this multi-scale analysis. So among the approaches I cite, I presented dive prediction with supervised learning, but we could also try to have some behavioral clustering with trying to represent the trajectories and to extract some behavior mode using autoencoder or to try to simulate trajectory. So for the future of this work, there is a lot of ecological question that exist about this case study that are seabirds. And particularly, we want to analyze the variability of foraging strategy, what make a trajectory different from another. And we would like to try the influence of some external variables, such as oceanographical covariates or social information. I mean, the presence or absence of other birds in some place should have the influence on their decision to go to some place. And we would like to answer some of this question with deep learning, and we are actually trying to use conditional GANs in this case, and that's a question where it's still difficult to get the way we could use GANs to answer this question, and that's where if you have any remarks, ID, or comments, it would be really interesting for this work. We have question in terms of formalism, how to formulate the problem of trips simulation, if we use a global simulation or sequential simulation, what data input, and another problem is how could we use such simulation for ecological meaning, so that ecologists could understand what is a simulation of the GANs and the advantage and drawbacks of such simulations. And one of the main results we have from the previous work and that gives valuable information for the next steps is this importance of data representation. Using this distance matrix, we can see that with a very simple module, with no big analysis, we had really good results with this distance matrix encoder. So this is, I think, a very important part of this of the designing of next neural networks for trip simulation. But it's not that easy to represent a foraging trip. For example, if you want global representation, we have high variability in trip duration, so it could lead to huge matrices if we like to represent the whole trajectory with distance matrix. So there is a choice to do in a spatial scale to consider, and in this representation, which is not that that easy. And so that's why an important question of this work is the representation of trajectories for deep learning. How we could use a very interesting latent representation. So every networks dealing with trajectory could have great results. So thank you for your attention, and if you have any question, I'll be happy to answer.